Welcome back everyone, and welcome back to Not Your Average Bikes. As you can see, we are not in the garage today. You might also notice that one of us is sat on the future and one of us is sat on the past. So we're going to give you a brief second to have a guess which is which, and then we'll show you what we're up to. So if I just jump around this side of the camera for a second, my good friend Kieran here can tell us what we are actually up to today.
Well, today we have the pleasure of checking out this brand new bit of kit. This is the Artisan Evo 3 electric bike.
Did you just say electric?
Electric!
You may also note that we have a Honda Grom by way of comparison. So I can hear you all asking already, what the hell are the Mech It Better boys doing playing with electric motorbikes? Well, are we scared of the future? I don't think we're scared of the future.
Certain aspects of the future possibly, but in terms of small capacity, kind of positive aspect of life, I think this would be a good option for some people.
So for some people the future might hold fear. It might be fear of global warming, it might be nuclear holocaust, it might be Brexit, or zombies, yeah. But for us it might hold a small electric motorcycle. So, as you can imagine, there is a lot of information we need to give you here. So we're just going to shoot these out, rapid style, like some kind of question and answer session. So first off, Kieran, the only question that really matters, how fast is it?
It can go up to 50 miles an hour.
How far can it go?
On your average commute, 50 miles.
What if you're giving it the beans?
Less.
Does it run on double A's?
No. 3 kilowatt power motor.
How long does that take to charge?
Well, if you've got it completely dead, 6 hours.
Is it cheaper than petrol?
Whole lot cheaper.
How much cheaper?
How much cheaper? 41p per charge.
How much is the road tax for this thing? Now I've got you though. What about servicing this thing?
Well, unlike me, this doesn't have much in the way of fluids. So that makes it much cheaper to run and ride.
So am I going to have to change the oil?
There's no oil.
Yeah, but am I going to have to lube my chain?
There's no chain.
How does it move then?
It's belt driven.
And have I got to adjust that?
Maybe, occasionally.
So when I turn it on, does it go brap brap brap?
Ha! Let me show you. No. No, not at all.
So the future is a quiet place.
Hopefully so.
So, can I ride it on a CBT?
Of course you can, as long as you're 17 or over.
So let's be serious for a minute and talk really briefly about some of the specifications of this bike. I'll start at the front and work my way backwards. So we're starting with the front tyre. It's the same as the back tyre. It's 12 inches and the tyres themselves are Timson, who I have never heard of, but we shall see how we go on with those when we ride it. We've got a disc up front with a twin pot caliper, and just to mention, we've also got a disc at the back with twin pot caliper. Back up front then, we've got the upside down forks, we've got LED headlights and indicators, we've got an LCD speedo, we've got some jazzy bits of decorative metal, which I'm not entirely sure work as engine guards, but they're quite nice anyway. We've got some really nice aluminium foot pegs, and there are lots of positions that you can adjust those to suit your riding. We've got a rear monoshock which is adjustable, and the mudguard itself. Obviously got the motor which is part of the swing arm. We've got the jazzy little hole where the petrol would normally go, which you can put, you know, luggage or sandwiches or biscuits, or sandwiches and biscuits in there if you're that way inclined. There's a pretty sturdy luggage rack, that is very sturdy in fact, and I'd be happily putting some weight on that. This particular bike has a leather seat, which is an upgrade from the standard black vinyl. The upgrade is £100 and it's a really nice seat actually, so I think it's probably worth it. And that is more or less it. So the question you're all asking now is, do I actually want to own this bike? And me and Kieran, we're going to take this out, we're going to ride it, and we're going to find out. We're coming at this from a place of being out and out petrol heads, never ridden an electric bike before, so we are a good test, I guess. And start. So, Mr. Baker.
Hello.
We both just had a little ride on the Artisan, and just wondered if you'd got any initial thoughts on it.
Well, it's quite different. Certainly for me, having never really done any scooter riding, with the sort of twist and go option, there's certainly a level of having to adapt with getting a feel for the controls there, because I just feel like there's a slight delay on when you twist that grip to when the power then shows up to the party. But certainly when it does, there's plenty of initial torque just to kind of boot you off the line. But kind of trying to find that delicate touch that everyone so cares for can be a bit tricky.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is just a question of getting used to things. I remember when I first started riding bikes, as probably most people, they're a little bit sort of sketchy, off the line, but you sort of get your eye in, you get your finesse in, and you know, you're all right before too much longer. And I think this is the same. I found when I was on it, when I first started riding it, because there is a little bit of a delay, I was adding more power than I needed to. And so then eventually that would kick in and sort of shoot me off.
As always.
Quicker than I'd anticipated, but we worked out that if you just add a little bit of throttle, like there is just a minute delay, but you just have to accept that, and then it's okay, it's much more controlled. It rides very much like a Honda Grom, and that is to say, it's got very small wheels, so relative to a normal motorcycle, if you want to put it that way. It is sort of a little bit agile. We'll be kind of call it agile, but it's sort of, it weaves around a little bit. But again, like the Honda Grom, it's just something that you get used to.
Chuck it around. It should make things easy enough. Again, just adapting to it. I'm still trying to go for the foot brake, but that's not there.
Yeah, you see, as a scooter rider, I was all right with that. I didn't go for the foot brake. I was happy enough with having both brakes up there on the top.
But it does seem to brake very firm. You know, it's a very strong.
Oh yeah, it definitively brakes if you want to brake. What about accelerating in terms of, you know, getting away from
it's good. I've not tried giving it full beans at this stage, but certainly kind of just adding that bit of power in there, it accelerates really nicely.
It certainly accelerates more quickly than my Honda CG125, which I've never found to be bad, to be honest. But it is definitely faster than that. It's certainly faster off the lights, and it's faster if you are already moving. So say you're doing 15-20 miles an hour and you give it a bit more, I was going to say gas, but it's not gas, you give it a few more...
bit more wrist.
Megajoules or whatever it is. It does sort of pull away quite quickly.
A few extra bananas worth of power.
We did experiment with the power setting. You can see 1, 2, 3. So on setting 1, it limits your speed to 30 miles an hour. Setting 2 is 40, setting 3 is 50. Makes no difference to the acceleration, it just limits you to those speeds. And that was interesting because I set it to number 1 and I accelerated up to 30, and then it was just as if somebody pulled the plug, literally pulled the plug at 30 miles an hour, and it just would not go any further. So that's obviously functional, that's doing exactly what it's meant to do.
I think it does obviously limit the amount of power it can apply. So if you do start getting onto like a hill or something like that, it drops away a little, because I think I was only getting up to about 25 or so on a bit of an incline on setting 1, but then as soon as it's a simple flick of the thumb, get a next setting and it's boom, back up again.
And let's be honest, everybody's just going to set it to number 3 and leave it there. So it's probably one of those things that realistically you're never going to have to worry about.
I think it is a handy one if you are in, say, a 30 zone or whatever, that you can comfortably go, I'll keep safe, I won't break any limits, whilst there is cameras around, I'll go 30.
So we just witnessed you doing a few manoeuvres there in the car park of a supermarket, which will remain nameless. How did you find that? How are the manoeuvres?
Again, trying to get that fine control in the throttle is just a little bit different. I think just because I've had more practice on the YBR, that you can, for now at least, it feels easier to kind of just edge in the power, whereas on this there's still that little bit of a delay where you want to have a bit more continuous input, but again, I think it's just getting used to it.
Okay, so what about the ride? I found when I was riding it, the suspension is quite solid, really. Like, it's not uncomfortable.
No.
It's not soft and squishy. It's sort of quite firm suspension.
Quite
really,
reasonable, yeah. The seat position sort of shoves you forwards into the tank, so you can sit, in a pretty strong position. And I think there is obviously an amount of adjustment on the rear shock that you can tune to your weight or riding style. But in the short experience of it, it seems reasonably comfortable. Like I say, it does sort of want to roll you forwards a bit in the seat, but there is a stopping point.
Yeah, I did find, because I'm how tall am I? I am some centimetres tall, 6'1.5", sort of 6'2". I don't know what that is in euro, I'm afraid. I found that I was perhaps a little bit on the tall side for it, but I did find that also on the Honda Grom. It's just exactly the same. It's quite a small bike, and I'm quite a big guy, so I did sort of feel a little bit like I was being squished into position. I don't know how you felt about that. You're a little bit shorter than I am.
Yeah.
Are you alright with that?
If you try and sit back, it's a bit tricky,
it's a very sloped seat.
Steep slope, so you are pretty much, it wants you up inside its
It wants you in the tank,
sandwich box.
It wants you in its box. So I think, like the Honda Grom, this thing is a bit of a toy. It's not for touring around Europe for weeks on end, but if you want to have a laugh while you get to work, if you want to have a little blast out of an evening or nip down the shops, then I think, you can't go far wrong, really. It felt nice to ride. It wasn't rattly, nothing fell off. Everything seems pretty well put together. Overall, you tell me, Kieran, I've been pretty impressed, to be honest. I didn't want to like it, I'll be honest with you about that. I think I wanted to hate it. I don't hate it.
No, I think for the sort of starting price and for what you get in, I think it's very reasonable. There are probably better and more finely tuned machines out there, but this is very much entry-level stuff that's reasonably priced, and it's something you can live with on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Like, could you live with this on a daily basis? And I would say yes. If you were just commuting around, if you lived in a city, or you didn't live a bazillion miles from work, I think realistically, yeah, you could.
The sort of savings that you would make over a conventional bike, I think, is well worth. Like I say, it's early days for the whole electric bike scene, but it's a good start.
That more or less concludes our little initial look at the Artisan Evo 3. And we are not going to profess to be experts at electric biking, and I'm not going to try and tell you whether you should buy this bike or not. All I'm trying to do is tell you what we know, tell you the facts, tell you what we thought of it when we rode it, and suggest that if you are interested in buying an electric motorcycle and you want to have a little bit of fun, then go and look at one. They're not hideous. I didn't throw up. I actually do quite like it, so I think that's enough to get you in a shop looking at one and riding one for yourself, so you can make your own mind up about this thing.
If you enjoyed that, there's the usual, give us the old thumbs up, subscribe, like and all that not. We have also got a Facebook page that's a recent addition to our fleet of social media. There are things on there that's maybe not elsewhere, so if you give that a little eyeballs, and we'll see you on the next one.
Time for some bonus footage then. We did mention earlier that we were going to compare the Artisan to the Grom, and there you are, there is a comparison. You can see that aesthetically they are very similar, although not identical. They do look remarkably alike.
Somewhat like cousins.
Yes, I think they are cousins. One is slightly younger and perhaps trendier. The other one is louder and fatter and generally more offensive. I'll leave you to decide which is which. But yeah, very quickly, the wheels are the same size and the calipers are more or less the same. Disc brakes more or less the same. Upside down forks more or less the same. Front end styling more or less the same. Gets a little bit different around the side with the metal gubbins as here and then just the plastic gubbins as here. The display is again remarkably similar. And round the back here, the Artisan has this plastic arrangement here, which again is very similar to the standard Grom. This is not the standard Grom, it does not have that, but ordinarily it would have. Obviously we've got the exhaust on the Grom, which we do not have or need on the Artisan. The monoshock is there on both, and quite a lot of other just like little styling cues I think Artisan have taken from the Grom. So you might like to consider it a sort of electric Grom, even right down to the fuel cap on the Grom, which is obviously functional because that's where you put the petrol. And on the Artisan, it's just plastic, but it does look, or I have attempted to make it look like the one on the Grom. So in a nutshell, thanks for watching the bonus footage. They are, more or less, the same.